Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg, and this is It's Okay to Be Old, a show about all things aging well. Well, I am so happy to have with me today Ken Stern. He's a longevity expert and host of Century Lives, The New Old, and the chair of the Longevity Project, a public engagement information project co-created with the Stanford Center on Longevity. Ken is here today to talk about his new book, his third book, Healthy to 100, How Strong Social Ties Lead to Long Lives. Lessons from the World's Healthiest Countries. Welcome, Ken.
Tricia, thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure. You're deep in the trenches now with healthy aging, like a lot of us. So I'm so happy you're here because you're one of my comrades. And it's a movement we're having today, and everyone's trying to navigate this, figure out what is the best thing I can do to age well. I'm going to tell you right now, and I think Ken will agree with me, there's no one magic bullet, but we're finding there's so many lifestyle choices we can make. Even moving the needle a tiny little bit to make a huge difference in the way we age, both emotionally, physically, and of course, spiritually. So, Ken, talk to us about how our social connections play such a huge role in not only our wellness as we age, but also our overall lifespan.
Yeah, so a great introduction, Patricia, and I agree with you 100%. There's no magic bullet to healthy aging. Fitness matters, nutrition matters, but I focus a lot on social connection, not because it necessarily matters more than these other things. It's because we as Americans tend to not think about it very much. We undervalue the social connection in the healthy aging process. And the research is actually pretty clear how important social connection purpose um, uh, uh, has in healthy longevity. The research is that being lonely is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So social connection, finding ways to get out of the house, connect with people, have attached meaning to your life has enormous consequences for not just living longer, but living longer in good health. But we're challenged in the US in an increasingly lonely and atomized society.
Yeah, spent a lot of time in other countries or studying lifestyle habits of citizens in other countries that we have much, that we know have longer lifespans than Americans. It's not a blanket statement, but there are outside of the United States, there are countries where men live a lot longer than women. We're finding that. And what is the when I say living longer, then men tend to die younger than in the United States than some of these other countries. Like I said, it's not a black and white statement, but the lives women live longer however you slice it. I mean
That's right.
that's
Women do live longer. Yeah.
women do live longer, but men tend to fare better. It seems in countries that have a slower, more calm lifestyle. That's been shown to be they're happier. They're not stressed out. They're not working 24 hours a day. They're enjoying their
Yeah.
family and they're enjoying their friends and people around them. So what stood out for you the most about that in the socialization? What was it, people living together? Was it multi-generations in the same families? Was it clubs? These kinds of things that keep people socially engaged. Is there any one thing that stood out?
So let me, that's an interesting set of questions, Patricia. So I'm going to actually take a step back and actually
Okay.
tell you a little bit why I started focusing on other countries. Because I think people know, and I'm sure you reported on about what I call the American life expectancy disparity. We live 5 or 6 years less, both men and women live 5 or 6 years less than in all of our peer countries. And by peer countries, I mean the advanced economies of the world, mostly of Europe and Asia. And not only do we live longer, we live more years in poor health. And now, in terms of healthy aging, you live almost a decade longer in Japan and Singapore in good health than the US. And that's an enormous difference. It wasn't always that way. If you turn the clock back 40 or 50 years, people in the US live roughly, we weren't leading the world in life expectancy, but we weren't last in our group. We were always sort of in the middle. Something began to change in the 1980s. And what began to change is we became increasingly atomized. Tech televisions first and now phones took over our life. 60% of adult Americans report being lonely on any given day. We spend less time with friends, more time alone, more time with technology. And I was curious, they have the same technology in all these other countries. How come it's not the same curse there? Why have they managed to flourish when we haven't? And what I found lots of different things in 5 different countries that I traveled to: Japan, Singapore, South Korea, Spain, and Italy. Very different countries, very different cultures, but all of them have, for a long time now, said social health and creating opportunities for people, especially in the second half of life, to be connected, have valuable, meaningful lives, is actually a public policy. And they have invested, it's a cultural policy, it's cultural norm and a public policy to try to create opportunities for people to be socially connected. And that, one of the things I found, Patricia, when you talk to people about social connection here in the States, they often associate that with sort of individual aspects, having lots of friends, or being a social person, being an extrovert. And it's really not. It means, often those places, it means working longer. It means, or having the opportunity, if you choose, to work longer. It means creating a network for volunteerism that emphasizes the value that older people can bring. In Korea, it means lifelong learning. So the idea that learning is not something we do in the first 18 or 20 or 25 years of life. It's something that we do across the life course. And those are all things that bring us out of our houses, take us away from our technologies, and bring us face to face with people. And that's, it's the style is different in every country, but the belief and the importance of that is uniform across those places.
And I want to throw something out that we didn't do a little bit in the Q&A portion. I wish, I try not to be too strict about that and staying on
Yeah.
subject, but a couple of things that it's frowned upon, maybe not so much anymore, but remember years ago, if you went back to college in your late 20s, that was old,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, of course. Right.
Or if you said, I'm going to go pursue a master's degree, and people say, why? Well, I'm interested in anthropology. But why? What are you going to do that for? What a waste of money. That was the belief for so long in America. And there needs to be, I think there should be a university where you have to be at least 50 to get in.
Yeah, yeah. So I've actually been to universities like that in Korea.
Oh,
So
really? Really?
yeah, I went to the School of Future Life, is what they call
Oh,
it. You don't actually have to be 50, but like the people who attend are they're everywhere from 20 to 70.
okay.
It's weighted towards older folks. So the interesting thing, Patricia, you're 100% right. And you're right to focus first on the cultural norm that we just don't think that that's what we're supposed to do. So we don't. There actually are not as many as in other countries, but there are opportunities. A lot of states provide, in their public universities, provide free or heavily discounted tuition for people over the age of 60.
Oh, that's important to know. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's
Okay.
actually a constitutional right in the state of Georgia to get free education for senior citizens. There are things called they're known as the OLLIs, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institutes, which are only for, they're attached to like 100 universities, but are only for people over, I think, over 60. So there are programs developed for them. So there are opportunities out there, but in a country of 350 million people, we just don't think about them. We don't know about them generally. We don't think that's what we're supposed to do. So, and as you say, the culture has tended to frown upon that idea. I think it's kind of weird. So we don't use it. But that's what needs to change, sort of understanding that that's a really good thing for yourself and actually for society at large, to have more people invested in learning.
Yeah, and I try to instill that in my daughter is, I tell her that learn for the sake of learning. If you're feeling like you're overwhelmed with whatever's going on, go take a class. Like
Yeah.
go learn something different. Even languages you can learn at any age. There's a misconception that you can only learn language as a child. What you've heard this, I'm sure. Once you reach a certain age, you can't grasp a
Yeah.
foreign language. And it's challenging, but that's the whole beauty. That keeps your brain active and keeps
So,
it going. Yeah.
so there's so um, if I can riff on that for a second. So what you said, we also have all these um, myths about aging. So how we're supposed to act and how we're supposed to function. So it's often called the decline narrative. You hit 65 and it's sort of straight downhill. And one of the things people say is like, I can't learn anymore. My memory is going. And that is true. That there's certain types of memory that decline with age. But there are other types of memory that actually either don't decline or actually get a little bit better than age. So, like the retention of facts tends to be, you're sort of able to retain as many facts, tends to decline with age as some of the synapses of the brain. I'm not a brain scientist, but tend to sort of corrode with age. But there are other things like procedural memory, I think it's called, in which you're able to interpret and understand facts and apply lessons from it. That actually gets better with age. We call it wisdom, but it's actually a form of memory. So there's, you can, we say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, you can. I mean, old dogs can learn new tricks, and so can humans. So, I mean, part of this is like, yes, we can.
So this speaks to the concept of health span versus lifespan. So whatever your lifespan is, and the average is still late 70s, from what I understand.
Sorry, about 79 for
which
in the
is
US.
which is frightening in some ways, because now we're all so vital and we want so much more. And the old saying, you're on the back nine. Once you hit 60, again, like you say, a lot of people say downhill all the way, which I don't agree with. But you have less years in front of you than behind you, as a rule.
Yes, for sure.
Maybe we'll get there that you won't, but there's an anxiety that comes with that, and an urgency. And I always like to say, you know what, instead of making it an urgent, I have to do this, I have to do that. Think about that one or two things that you always wanted to do in your life and you weren't able to do, and do it now. And I always like to say, if you don't mind me sharing a little side thing, but if somebody wants to be a Major League Baseball player, what are the odds? 1 in 100,000 kids get to do that, right? So go join a softball league, or go join a senior baseball team, and things like that. If you always wanted to be a ballerina, okay, you won't be a star, but go take a ballet class or a dance class. It's so minor, but it can change your life in so many ways to just take that one step. So it's interesting that you're talking
Yeah.
about, we're tapping into so much more that we think it's downhill, but there's so much more life to live and to give.
Can I tell you a story
Sure,
that
of
happens right
course.
in front? So, among the things we do at the Longevity Project is we run a Instagram channel called Grand People, and it's really to that point, exactly the point you're making, Patricia, which is this is not the stories of people doing crazy, breaking records, running marathons when they're 95. It's really of the everyday heroes, as I think about people who are making contributions. One of the first stories we told were the old ladies against underwater garbage who dive in ponds, women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s in Cape Cod who dive in
Wow.
ponds to clean them up. They're fantastic. But this week, we're doing a story. It won't come out. We're reporting on the story of a guy. He's 66. He always wanted to play the tuba since he was a little kid in the LSU marching band. So he's doing it. He went back to school. He enrolled. He got boned up on the tuba after 40 years. He worked out to because it's a lot of work to be a marching band, and he tried out and made it. And that's like he's
Wow.
living that dream. And he's kind of like
Wow.
a hero to people.
Yeah.
Name's Dan Broussard, I think, if I remember correctly. No, Kent Broussard. And that's a guy who said, this is something I want to do. I want to do for myself, and I can do it. And in his late 60s now, he's doing that. For the next few years, assuming he can stay in the band. But every week he marches, and it's a joy of his life.
And I bet you the young kids get a kick out of him, right? They probably enjoy having him there. That's very cute. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the Longevity Project.
So we set that up about 7 years ago. I know this connects with sort of how you think about things, Patricia. So I started working with the Stanford Center on Longevity, which is one of the world's leading think tanks on how do we rethink life, our life course in light of longer life. And the people there are amazing and amazing researchers. But the issue they face and that I joined with them on was how do you foster greater public understanding? We have a lot of myths that control how we live. The learning myths, the idea we're supposed to retire at a certain age. How do we reconnect? How do we connect sort of the new research, the new ideas about living longer lives with a broader public? So the Longevity Project's goal is to foster greater understanding of the opportunities and challenges along their life. And we do that through, we mentioned, we do it through newsletters, we do it with YouTube. This book is an offshoot of it. We have conferences, we do all sorts of things to connect the general public with the idea that maybe we can live our longer lives in different ways and make it more meaningful and healthy as a result.
And you have a book club.
We have to do a book club, yes. And
Yeah.
I'm actually the next one on my book club.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'll be there.
Yeah. So we do once a month. We talk with an author who has a new book around, could be nutrition. The last one we did this week was with Carrie Hannon, who's a finance reporter, retirement reporter at Yahoo Finance. It could be about exercise. It could be about social connection. It could be about where you're supposed to live when you hit 65. So lots of different things to think about in a country which is going to have 80 million people over the age of 65 by mid-century. So it's a big, growing, and important population.
And I always tell people that one of the things that's, if you're thinking about restructuring your business or you're up to it and you want to work and do things, the market, the business opportunities for providing goods and services for adults over 65 is it's not only huge now, it's actually growing. And it's a good thing to look at, that you could be a perfect role model and representing your own age group in things that would be appealing to them. This is where it's going, I think. Ken, you now head up Palisades Media Ventures and were formerly the CEO of National Public Radio. You really do have a handle on what's trending in media. So, of course, everyone everywhere is talking about how to age well. What changes have you seen over the years in the public perception of older adults?
So I think it's a really complicated issue. I mean, 10,000 people. We're at sort of at the point where the baby boomer generation is cresting into age 65. So 10,000 people turn 65 every day, and they are physically more capable than generations before. We live healthier lives, and that's true universally in the developed countries. And they have sort of changing expectations of how they're going to live longer lives. And I think that is generally, in sort of a deeply ageist society like the U.S., I do think norms around expectations around aging are being changed. And partially, I credit that to Hollywood, actually. For the first time, we see shows in which people over the age of 70 or 80, including women, who have often faced gendered ageism, are main characters, and they're shown as complex characters. I think of like Ted Danson on Man on the Inside, which is one of my favorite shows.
Fabulous.
And he's shown as I love it because he's an interesting, complex. Aging is not whitewashed. That shows some of the hard times of it, but also shows what you can do and the value it brings to someone when you give them a purpose. And I think, when media like that start telling different stories about people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s doing amazing things, it does change our perception of it. And they're amazing. Mel Brooks, who's 99, just announced his next movie.
Wow! 2, yeah.
Which is to be delivered when which he's going to star in and produce, and maybe direct. It's supposed to be done when he's 101. I mean, that type of thing sends a message that there are things. We're not all going to be Mel Brooks, unfortunately for the rest of us, but there are things we can do in later life that are really meaningful.
Yeah, that's what, like I said, it's just that little bit that makes your life more meaningful and makes you feel better about yourself is, why not? So, ageism is still alive and well. It's changing for sure, but it's still there. What is your best advice to our rapidly aging society on how to continue to cultivate our relationships with friends and family? Finding new friends, right? Or reconnecting with family, living arrangements change. I know there's not one answer because everybody wants something different. How do you feel about 55 and over communities? I love them. I think they're amazing, but.
So that's a great question and a complicated one. So I'm a deep believer in the power of intergenerational communities. And one of the things I saw, as you said, as you mentioned, Patricia, all these countries are different from each other, but one thing that they had in common is that they all believe, sometimes explicitly as a matter of public policy, sometimes implicitly just the way people live, that all generations are strengthened if they're together. They're
Yeah.
like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that fit together. Um, and I know a lot of people who think a lot and spend a lot of time thinking about intergenerational communities, and therefore are somewhat dubious of 55 plus communities. I've been to a bunch. I host a podcast called Century Lives, and our next season is in housing.
Right.
I was at the Latitudes Margaritaville Latitudes. No, it's Latitudes Margaritaville. Sorry, community in Panama City, Florida.
They actually call it that. That's amazing. That's funny.
Well, it's owned by the Jimmy Buffett.
It's the Jimmy Buffett. Okay, all right. I was going to say,
yeah. So
they weren't capitalizing on the name. It's actually,
that's right. They were the name. Right?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Uh, and people really like it. I mean, so I think one of the things is, like, in an ageist society, we don't make room for people who are over 55 or over 65. This is a place, I mean, the history of 55 plus communities are, these are places, we live in an ageist society, people over a certain age are shunted aside. Let's build a place where they can be the stars of the show, right? That this community is built for them. And that's a really likable model. I would be happier if we just didn't shunt people over the age of 55 or 65 aside. We don't need those places. But I can understand why it's attractive to a lot of people. I've been to the villages, which people make fun of a lot. But there's a lot of reasons. There's a reason why 100,000 people have chosen to live there.
Of course. It's a city unto itself.
Yeah.
And in California, we have the old leisure worlds were turned into, now they have fancy names, Laguna Woods and Camarillo Hills. And, but the nice thing about it is, I don't think it's an either or, right? But the nice thing about it is, if your grandmother or grandfather is older but very vital, and they want to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and go out and stay out late at night and do their own thing, if they're living in the house with their children and grandchildren, they don't have that freedom.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I would say is, I write a lot about loneliness and social connection. People in those places are not lonely. Never lonely. And that's at the villages, there are thousands of clubs. I mean, if there's any topic you're interested in, it could be cars, it could be politics, it could be writing, it could be drumming, it could be swimming, it could be pickleball. There are a dozen clubs for it. I mean, they really find a place where it's hard to be alone. And that's that's an important thing in society, that they recognize the importance of that. And I think that's why people go to places like that.
And just to be able to laugh and have a frame of reference, and someone that can share your shared memories and shared history is fantastic. Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. I do, wellness education, and fitness and nutrition is my background. So I actually took a silver sneakers class because I considered teaching it. I'm very interested in teaching older adults also. And I went in, and I felt like I was in a high school classroom. There was the mean girl. There was the one, I went and took a chair. She goes, "Don't take that, because when so-and-so comes in, that's her spot, and she's going to get really mad." I was like, oh my God, this is just a recreation of being but it was fun. And you know what? These men and women, it was mixed. They clamored to be there at 3 days a week. They just couldn't wait to get there. And to me, that was the beauty of it. That was the success of that they were leaving their apartments. It was in New York City. They were leaving their apartments and getting out, and that's how they're socializing and staying well. So I really, really loved it. It was I got out of it. And if I walked away laughing, I felt like that was a successful class. So So Ken, how has it been for you to embrace your own aging process? Especially while you were researching and writing this.
Yeah, so I'm 62. And I think one of the things, and now I was at the grocery store, my local Harris Teeter this morning, and I get my 5% seniors discount on Thursdays, only on Thursdays for some reason. And that's always a little bit shocking to know that chronologically I'm at a certain point, and there's the runway gets shorter as you go on. But I would say 62. one thing you can say about aging is that you've met, one 62-year-old, you've met one 62-year-old. People age in different ways. It's an incredibly heterogeneous process. I've done, in the same week that I went down to Latitudes Margaritaville and was beaten on the pickleball court by a bunch of people in their 70s, I also went up to report on a program up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I interviewed a housebound woman who was 70 and she could have been 90 or 95. There's a lot of physical disparities as you age, and it's really up to you. So I don't think of 62 for me as old. I don't think 70 for me will be old. And I'm not fearful of, I'm in control of how well I age, and I will do as best as I can and make sure I age well. So not scared of that process.
All right, 90% of it is that you're paying attention, right? You're not afraid. You're looking at it and you're saying, okay, what is it that I can do now? I'm 64, about to be 65. And I just filled out my Medicare. So if you need help with that, call me because it's complicated.
I will call you. It's
Please
incredibly
do. It's a bit complicated. But then once you're in and get your card, it's a breeze. So it's the journey. It's not being there, it's getting there on that for sure. So what message do you want people to take away from this book and this movement, Healthy to 100?
Yeah, so a bunch of things. I'm very excited about it. So I think one thing is I want them to know about the importance of social connection to aging. That is, it's not the only route to healthy aging, but it is a critical ingredient to healthy aging. So if you focus, don't forget about your nutrition, don't forget about your fitness and movement.
Right.
But social connection is actually a way to that. You can't be by yourself and socially connected. If you're socially connected, means you're out and moving and engaging in the world. And that is really important. So emphasize social connection. Second is social connection doesn't mean being the life of the party. It means putting yourself in a place that you'll connect with people who have similar interests to yourself. That could be work, that could be volunteering, it could be learning. The research is you've got a new friend. It takes 50 hours of being near someone to make a friend, 200 hours to be a close friend. So that is like, where are you going to be that you're going to spend time with people? And the third one, I'll say just for the benefits of brevity, because I have lots in the book, lots of ideas and enthusiasm, is treat the next 20 years with the same seriousness, whatever age you are, but treat the next 20 years with the same seriousness of purpose and planning that you did for the last 20. I run into a lot of 60-year-olds who are sort of finding themselves retiring and think of that as sort of a period of idleness and kind of decline. They don't use that word, but that's really what it amounts to. At 62, I should have 20 or 25 or, God willing, more than that of runway in front of me. And I want to make that as valuable and engaged as possible. And that doesn't happen by happenstance. It happens by taking those years with the same seriousness and purpose as I did the last 20. So those are the messages that I want people to take away from my book, along with lots of others.
Lastly, I want to share that, and to please reiterate to everybody, it's not selfish to take care of yourself and think of yourself first.
Absolutely.
That's 100%. Something that people struggle with. Well, then all I care about is myself. Well, that's what you should be doing at this stage in your life. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And they're not mutually exclusive. Engaging with your family is actually good for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Ken, thank you so much for joining me here today. This has been such a fabulous conversation. And you can contact Ken Stern at www.longevity-project.com. And of course, just look Ken Stern up on Google and you'll find everything you need. The book, Healthy to 100, is available at Amazon.com. And in closing, Ken, I want to ask you, what do you like about getting older?
So it's a great question. So it's a question that I ask when I do my podcast. I ask people. So I asked that of the comedian Margaret Cho just yesterday.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what she said, because it was it was how I feel, which is she said, I love getting old because I don't stress out nearly as much about what other people think about me. I care about myself. I mean, to your point, I care about myself. I'm not that worried anymore what people think about how I dress or how I eat or anything. I make decisions for myself, and I'm comfortable with that. And I feel the same way. I'm just not that caught up in what others think of me. I hope people like me. I like other people, but I'm comfortable in my own skin in ways that I wasn't when I was younger.
Yeah. And that's very important. That's the first step in just letting go and moving forward. Thank you again so much, Ken. And
Patricia, thanks for having me with you.
my pleasure, my pleasure. And thank you all for listening to It's Okay to Be Old. Please subscribe to my channel for our engaging discussions on all things aging well. For feedback and topic requests, you can contact me at www.patriciagreenberg.com. Stay well and stay safe, everyone.